Hi, my name is Marsha Coiner. I'm a member here at JVC, and I wanted to share with you some interesting lessons that God has taught me about prayer. I struggle, I think, as everyone does, with a consistent prayer life, but there have been times when God has called me to pray for things that I would not have thought usual. In 2006, my husband was diagnosed in Africa with stage 4 colon cancer. And we came back to the States, and we almost lost him after over a month in the hospital and surgeries and intensive care, and they were sure that they were going to lose him. When we did not lose him, he was convinced that God was going to send us back to Africa. But God did not have us pray for his healing. I really thought that was strange, because you would think that you would really want to pray for his healing. But what God called us to pray for, and we felt very strongly about it, and was that we were to pray that whatever came, whether it be death, further sickness with a lot of hospital stays, going back to Africa, would be for God's glory. And so that was the prayer that we asked everyone to pray, and that for me was hard, because I wanted to pray for his healing. He was only 54 at the time that he was diagnosed with this, and we had always thought that we would live together for a long time. Other people prayed for his healing, but we prayed that God would be glorified, and God was. God gave him 5 more years. We did go back to Africa. And God used him mightily in Africa and in the States, as infusion wards can be some of the most depressing places to go sometimes. God used him to reach out to Africans, many of whom were Muslim, because the AIDS was such a big problem, and that many of the people in the same area of the hospital he was dying of AIDS, and he was able to tell them he was dying of cancer. And that gave him an in with them, and he was able to share greatly. And so God used him to his glory. God answered that prayer. But that was a prayer God gave us to pray. My instincts would have been to pray for his healing. And so that was a hard thing for me to adjust to when it first came to doing that, because I came so close to losing him in 2006. At the same time, God gave me a different kind of urge to pray. When I was in the hospital for one of the infusions with my husband, I went out to get him something to eat, and there was a young man sitting there, and I sat down beside him. And he was very distraught, and I asked him what was wrong, and he told me that he was diagnosed with a very severe heart condition, and he had no one to pray for him. His family did not believe in prayer. And I said, well, I'll pray for you. And he said, will you really? And I said, yes, I will. I really felt led to pray for this man. Now, the funny thing is, I never knew what the man's name was, because they called him at that moment, or they came and got him. But I called after him, I will pray for you. And every night for 6 months, I prayed for that man. God just would not leave me alone. I just had to pray for him. And the interesting thing was I was praying for his healing, whereas I wasn't praying for my husband's healing. But that was what God had led me to pray for and what he had asked for. And then after 6 months, one day I woke up and I realized that the urge to pray was gone. That either I never knew what happened to that young man. I don't know if he died. I don't know if he was healed. I don't know if they were able to find some treatment for him. But God gave me peace that one way or another, he had answered my prayers. So God can call you to do different kinds of prayers that you just think, whoa, why is he doing this? I mean, why am I not praying for healing for my husband, but I'm praying for healing for this guy who I don't even know? And yet God is getting the glory in all of that. And so you just need to be open to what God is calling you to pray for. There have been a lot of times I have struggled with prayer, but I have to say that I have never felt so led to pray for 2 different prayers as I was in 2006, 2007. And so I just would encourage you to just be open to when God is calling you to pray for somebody. You know, you so often say, I will pray for you, and you don't really mean you're going to pray for that person. Except God wouldn't let me alone, because God wanted me to pray for that person, and he gave me a burden for that young man. And so just be open to what God may be calling you to pray for somebody. And just realize that God is going to give you the strength to do the prayer, and he will let you know when it's over. So thank you very much. I'm just going to end this thing on prayer, but that is 2 lessons that God has taught me. He calls you to pray for very different things for very different people.